I didn't. So knight c3, he responds. Now, by the way, one of the downsides here is that I have pinned my bishop. I'm sorry, his bishop pins my knight. What that means is his bishop was attacking my king, and the knight blocks it. Now the knight can't move. It's illegal for my knight to move, because if I did, then black would just be able to capture the king, and that's not legal in the game. So the knight cannot move, and what black tends to do, or what a good idea to do to a pinned piece, is to attack it. So black plays knight d5, which is a good move. I can't take that knight. It's protected anyway, but I can't take it because it's illegal for me to move that knight. And he's attacking it twice. I'm only defending it once. So if I don't do anything, he's probably going to take it with the knight. I take it with the pawn, then he takes that pawn, and he's attacking at that point. He'd be attacking both my rook and my king, which means I'm about to lose a pretty big piece. So this is a threat. It's not his move. I can respond to this threat, but it's a threat. It's something I have to deal with. All right, twofold. Number one, I've no longer pinned. The knight can now freely move. And number two, it's defending that knight again. So now the knight has two defenders and two attackers. So it's going to work out evenly. It'd be an even trade at this point if we were to start to go to war here. And makes what I think is a pretty natural move here, which is queen a5. Now what he's doing is adding a third attacker for the knight. He's defended twice and attacked 3 times. So if we traded here, he'd come out ahead, probably up a pawn. And he would have that fork on my king and queen. Now king and queen. King and rook. The rook is now defended by the queen, though, so it wouldn't be that huge a loss, and I don't think the queen could just take the rook because it's defended by the queen. It would not be a good trade for him. But all in all, he has 3 attackers here and 2 defenders, so we have to deal with that threat. The easiest way to deal with that threat in my book was to take the knight. So now this bishop's defended all kinds of ways, 3 different ways, and only attacked twice. And he has to deal with recapturing this at some point, or I just win material. So he does this with check, which means I have to deal with this. This is the rule of chess. You've got to deal with the check. Pinning my knight again, but he's going to come over here and get it with the queen. I think there are several different move orders you can do here. I looked at several of them. So if I did this, he could just come over here. I do this and this, and more or less, we're just going to wind up in the same position. He's going to get kicked back out here. And we're going to wind up with this same idea here, with this d4 pawn being the target of an attack, and I'm going to have to pile up on it to defend it. So, I think there are a couple of different move orders that basically lead to this position. But I think in the end, it's all about the same. And I'm going to have to move my knight back to f3 or over to b3 in order to defend the d4 pawn. Got to get it out of the way of the queen, and of course moving it over here also protects it. Alright, moving on. So he's going to check me here. Now one of the things that we're looking at here is maybe blocking. I could block like this, but what that does is loses the d4 pawn. Definitely don't want to do that. We could block with the queen. What I actually did was block with the queen. Don't want to lose that d4 pawn. He takes. Now, if I take with the knight, then I am going to still lose that d4 pawn. And what his goal here was for me to give up my right to castle. Once I move the king, I can no longer castle to either side. So right now I have a choice: either give up the d4 pawn or give up the right to castle. And of course the correct decision here is to give up the right to castle, because you don't really need to castle when there aren't a lot of pieces on the board. If there's a lot of traffic, a lot of things moving around out here in the middle, and then the middle suddenly opens up and my king's standing here exposed, that's a big problem. I can't get him out of the way quickly. In this situation, the pieces are all gummed up. His light square bishop back here is not going anywhere for a while. His rooks are tied down behind the back ranks there. The knight can't get anywhere quickly. So the king is not in any danger in the middle. But I still want to get him a little bit out of the line of fire because this file right here is wide open, and those rooks are eventually going to want to go there. And maybe even we're going to find ways to maybe get at these two weak pawns right here. We both got a weak pawn on the d file. So there's going to be some activity in this area. This is where most of the game is going to be played over the next 20 moves probably. So the king being in the middle of that, not that great an idea right now. So I'm going to want to get him out of the way, but it doesn't have to be done quickly in this case because the center is pretty closed off. This little barricade here is a sort of a blockade towards his pieces. So he castles, which is pretty normal. I did want to look at another, I had a variation I forgot about I wanted to look at here. Taking with the knight, yeah, I want to talk about taking with the knight for just a minute because it seems like there might be, one thought might be that there might be some way to get some counterplay out of this. And I looked at this line, I actually looked at this line during the game. Knight takes c4, and then if I just jump right away on this open file, the idea is maybe to jump up here to the 7th rank. There's just this line of pawns waiting to be eaten up. Now the problem is, this bishop protects the 2 right at the entry point. So even if I were just to immediately jump up here, 2 things would happen. One, I wouldn't be able to attack either one of these pawns because it's defended. But number 2, he's going to scrunch me in right away, lock me in, and I'm going to just lose my rook because he's going to play king d8. And I don't think there's much I can do about him just taking my rook. So, bad idea right now, but is there any counterplay associated with it? So what we did was we did rook to c1. He's going to want to get his bishop out. Knight to f3, so we're guarding that. We're going to open up lines again. He's probably going to take that bishop off the board. I'm going to take here. Now I've lost my right to castle anyway. And probably going to go here. I don't want to move back to the back row again. We're going to want to come up here and protect this pawn. And I think this is far enough out of the way here that this isn't too big a deal to have your king in the center. He's going to want to centralize his king as well. We're looking at this again. This pawn is now tied down. That rook's got to kind of stay there. This pawn's pinned. So we have some interesting things going on here. He can really just do this. I'm sorry, wrong rook. I knew that. He's probably just going to do this, and I really don't have any counterplay. I'm just down a pawn here. My king is a little more central, but that's just not critical yet. So I don't think there's anything there. I did look at it and think about that line, but I don't think anything ever became of it. So, moving on. What we actually did here was take with the king. As I said, he castled, pretty normal. Now, what we're doing here, sort of manually castling. This rook can come over here, and the king can just slide in behind the bishop and maybe even run over here to the corner if it needs to. But getting it off of these 2 files, I think, is the primary thing. And the best way to do that is get this rook over here, support the d4 pawn, and get the king out of the way. If I just go ahead and start moving the king back over here, the rook is locked out of the action. We want to get these rooks here to the c and d file. That's kind of my plan. As I said earlier, this is going to be kind of the battlefield of the game. So he's playing b6. This is a natural developing move, and it was present in the other line I showed you. Now he can move either his bishop to this diagonal, which is pretty good, or he could even move out to this one if my bishop's not there. So he's got 2 good diagonals that he's going to access with just this b6 move. It opens up a lot of things. There's my manual castle. Just getting the king out of the way. Now that does one other thing, which is it supports the d4 pawn, which is one of my critical weaknesses. He has a weakness here. I have a weakness here. So those kind of balance each other out. Right now, I think overall my position is better than his, but mainly because his bishop is not active yet. He's really taken a big step towards activating that bishop here. My bishop has a lot more freedom. His is about to have enough freedom. Getting outside of this pawn chain right here, putting these 2 pawns on dark squares, getting outside of these two squares